Yeah, he talks to Serge quite a bit, and they have an interesting relationship. It's funny. It's very funny.
Okay. He already teach me how to laugh too. I know how to laugh already.
See the shots that I took, wet like I'm booked.
I'm slamming niggas like Shaquille. Shit is real.
I feel like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen at my wedding. I been Steph Curry with the shot, been cooking with the sauce, Chef Curry with the pot, boy.
Shot towns, B-Rolls, moving the next BK.
They call me the Stephon Marbury of rap, darling.
Riding rockets like I mean, y'all niggas weak.
I might go to Marcus Cousins out in public.
That's like saying that the bad boy Piston team didn't need Isaiah.
Booming out in South Gwinnett like Lou Will, 6 man like Lou Will.
Meets KD, ain't no nigga that can shoot like me. Black.
My skin black like Mamba. Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, LeBron, you's a baller. But Jimmy Butler is your father.
I go from 6 to 23 like I'm LeBron.
I be ballin' like my nigga Mo.
What the does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
You're welcome.
What the is he talking about?
All right, everybody, welcome. This is the Basketbool podcast. I am your host, Brandon Orlowski, and the title of the podcast speaks for itself. We're just going to be talking about basketball and booling. If you don't know what booling is, put that in the Google machine, figure it out, get hip to the fact. This show is supposed to be pretty low-key, pretty non-formal, so I don't know what kind of expectations you have. I really don't know what kind of expectations I have, but I feel like I have a lot of basketball knowledge, and I don't necessarily get to share it with anybody. So I'm just gonna share it with myself, and then I'm going to put it out for everybody else and for you guys. So once again, thanks for checking it out. One thing that I want to do with this show, of course, I'm going to try to get the diehard basketball fans in here, and hopefully hopefully you guys will be sending me messages, and we'll be talking shit, and it'll make for a better show. It'll make for better content. Hopefully that's a step or two in the future. Just taking it day by day, but there's plenty of NBA talk and an NBA culture to discuss. This 2018 season has already been insanely dysfunctional. There's a lot going on, but I also want to bring in people who aren't necessarily basketball fans or sports fans for that matter. Anybody who just wants to veg out and listen to what goes on in the NBA, throughout the season, and maybe even develop an appreciation for the game. So take this podcast and do whatever you want with it. Just kind of putting it out there for all you to consume. So let's. I think it would be good to start with a quick recap of what happened last season. So the Golden State Warriors are, of course, the best team in the league right now, and they're going to get better once DeMarcus Cousins comes back and plays center for them instead of Kevin Looney and Kevon Looney and Jordan Bell. And the Warriors have been in the news a whole lot the past 48 hours, and that's going to be the first thing we talk about. But the Warriors last year, of course, won the title, beat the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals. They swept the Cavs. LeBron James, after that, left and went for Los Angeles and joined the Lakers. And right now they're not doing too great. But then again, LeBron, when he joined the Heat and when he joined the Cavs again in 2014, those teams struggled early on, and they came around in the end because LeBron's on their team, and hopefully by April, the younger players and even some of the veterans have realized what it takes to play with a guy like LeBron and somebody who commands so much attention and can do so much on the court, and he's worthy of the attention that he gets. So the Lakers are going to be fine, but right now they're just kind of going through the motions, I think, and they're just trying to figure out what lineups work best with LeBron, because if you have LeBron on your team, obviously you're going to game plan around him. Other teams definitely have a more team-centric approach, but when you have a dynamic superstar like that, it happens with Anthony Davis in New Orleans, you're going to game plan around him because that's the guy who's going to draw the most attention and the guy who's going to be deserving of the most attention because of the damage that he does to the opposing team. Otherwise, the Eastern Conference, which has historically over the past 5 to 10 years just been a dumpster fire of a conference with LeBron just dropping his nuts on every team that tried to go up against him, to reach the finals. Nobody since LeBron went to Miami and ran through, had his run in Cleveland, he made the NBA Finals 8 straight times with those teams. The Eastern Conference did not have any answers for LeBron. The Bulls tried, the Celtics tried, the 76ers tried, and the Raptors tried. They couldn't figure anything out. Now that he is in the Western Conference, which has historically over the past decade been just a fucking meat grinder, it's, right now the Lakers, like I said, aren't doing so hot, but they do have LeBron, so it's not like they're in panic mode. I mean, it's only the middle of November. They're only 8-6. It's actually better than I thought, but still, when you have a young team led by LeBron, you expect maybe a little more, but it is also the middle of November in LeBron's first season. Which, he pretty much went to LA as just kind of this is not necessarily his send-off, but it's definitely his last probably, monster mega contract. So he's out there doing business ventures, he's getting into movies, and he's just trying to grow his brand. Excuse me. And for LeBron, that's honestly probably the best move, career-wise, lifestyle-wise. You got to make all the money that you can when you're in the NBA, when you're in all the professional sports, really. Anybody could get hurt. Anybody could just, stop caring. It's happened. People just get paid and they just don't give a fuck anymore. But LeBron has been top 10, top 5 in the league since he was a rookie. And he still is. I think he's 33 years old. He's been in the league like 15, 16 years. He's had different career peaks and valleys, of course, but definitely more peaks. Yeah, he's 33. Drafted, 15 years. I think this will be his 16th year. But yeah, the Lakers are going to be fine. Lakers are going to be fine. The Heat were fine. Cavs made the finals with that garbage team. That's just the player LeBron is. He's that much of a dominant force. That's why he's in the argument with Michael Jordan for the best player to ever play the game. And we're not going to get into that in this show because I'm not getting into that in the first show. But the East, like I said, was just kind of there when LeBron was just running roughshod. But now that he's gone, a lot of a lot of Eastern Conference teams have taken advantage, and they've bolstered up their teams, and they could potentially rival Golden State if they if any of these teams reach the finals. Some more than others, of course, but especially from what we're seeing right now with Golden State with the dysfunction, which I promise we're getting to, but there's a lot of dysfunction going on between individual players. There's a cloud over the team of, is the dynasty over? So I think mentally that's going to rattle the players, especially over the course of the season all the way until June, assuming they reach the finals, because they probably will and they're probably going to win. But now there's Eastern Conference teams that can at least challenge what Golden State is putting up. The Boston Celtics got Hayward, Tatum, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier. The 76ers, Joel Embiid. They got Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, to name a few. They got the Raptors have Kawhi Leonard. They have Serge Ibaka, Pascal, Kyle Lowry. They got players. They got a great team. The Raptors, I'm pretty sure, are at the top of the Eastern Conference. They're 12-3. And everybody thought Kawhi Leonard wasn't even going to play. We're all caught up for all intents and purposes. But the big story lately, Kevin Durant, Golden State Warriors, superstar forward, arguably best scorer in the league right now, and some argue all time. He has the reputation around the league of being disloyal and a snake. So when Draymond Green confronted him about the possibility of him, leaving Golden State in the offseason, it didn't really go over too well because Draymond Green he's a very emotional player. If you don't know what Draymond Green is capable of once that jump ball happens, it's just the dude has the passion that can rival probably Dennis Rodman. I think that's the comp that most people think of. Probably not as crazy, not as wild, but definitely has the capability of popping off at any second because he's that emotionally invested in the game, and you can't really blame him. But sometimes he does cross the line, and I don't know if confronting Kevin Durant about possibly leaving the team, which if I was Kevin Durant, obviously, if you are considered, most people consider him to be, the second or third best player in the league behind LeBron and, whoever's having the best week, have it be Westbrook, have it be James Harden, have it be Anthony Davis, Steph Curry, his own teammate. You want to be the guy. Jimmy Butler wants to be the guy. There's a lot of players around the league that want to command the team. And that's something that LeBron had to adjust to in Miami when he teamed up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. But Dwayne Wade was, he was the face of the franchise for the Miami Heat, and he kind of still is, even though right now he's reduced to a bench role and he's a veteran. He's just providing what he can, and it's his last season, and he's doing the Kobe farewell tour, and everybody's happy. LeBron had to adjust to being second fiddle for a while until he came into his own with his role in the team and where he belonged with the different players on the floor, really. And then he took over and became what he became and, took over the Cavaliers, and now he's, still dominating on the Lakers. And his career hasn't really started to dip. I assume it's going to in the next couple years, just, a little. I can see LeBron playing until he's about 40. Dude's a fucking tank. Jesus, look up pictures of LeBron James like working out. Go on his Instagram. He's always posting workout shit on his story. He's posting shit all day long. Like The Rock. The Rock's an animal with his sushi train cheat day. He's got some fucking hashtag. Dude just becomes an animal on Sundays. But enough about The Rock. Yeah, LeBron's a beast. He can play probably another 5 years at a very high level. So anyway, yeah, Draymond Green got in Kevin Durant's face and questioned his loyalty. And he ended up getting suspended and fined. Not the first time it's happened to Draymond, but still, you hate to see it. But, you know, it's probably best if you didn't, you know, confront your, you know, number one, number two superstar on the team and call him a bitch and say that, you know, we won without you, you know, we don't need you, leave, which is actually what Draymond said to him reportedly. So yeah, not pretty stuff going on in the Bay Area. And, you know, as an NBA fan, not from the Bay Area, from Chicago, kind of nice to see. Kind of nice to see a little friction going on. Kind of saw a little bit of that with Cleveland last year, but like everybody knew LeBron was leaving. Everybody knew the Cavs were bad, but the East as a whole was just worse. So they were just gonna get there by default because they had LeBron. But not anymore. It's fun when it happens to not your team. You know, it was cool to see the Bulls with Rose and Butler and Gasol, and they almost beat the Cavs. You know, Rose had the game winner, and then LeBron had the game winner, and then everything after that was just dog shit. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end. And you know, they started the rebuild, and now we are where we are. The Bulls are where they are. And I think they're in a good place, but you know, it's tough to see your team that was once so good be so bad. You know, happened with the Bears too. Bears were decent about 6 years ago. They were dog shit for about 3, and now they're the favorites to win their division. But yeah, this could be the end of the line for the Warriors dynasty. I mean, Kevin Durant definitely could leave. Like I said, he probably wants to be the main guy, and he could go to New York and do that. He could go to Chicago and, you know, no, fuck. That's not happening. The biggest rumor is that he's going to LA to team up with LeBron, and there's literally no words as to what kind of pillaging is going to happen if that duo ends up becoming reality. Oh, jeez. Where are they getting all that money? The Bus family's still up and kicking. Jeannie Buss was banging Phil Jackson. I always forget about that. Magic Johnson's still walking around every once in a while at a game. He owns the Dodgers for some reason. I mean, if you have the money, why the fuck not? Yeah, the league seems to be a little shook and a little happy in some corners that the Warriors could potentially fall apart because Kevin Durant could leave. DeMarcus Cousins ain't getting re-signed because they don't have that kind of money. Klay Thompson might leave. It could be the beginning of the end. Klay Thompson said that he doesn't really want to be a part of any kind of like hashtag Stay KD tour. You know, he doesn't want that to be a distraction. He just wants to play basketball. You know, if they win the championship, then that's more incentive for Kevin Durant to, you know, make up his mind. He's his own man. You're not gonna necessarily influence his final decision. You can definitely steer him in a direction, but ultimately he's gotta pull that trigger. But if the Warriors win the championship, they could convince him to stay, and they could end up paying him what he wants. But probably not, because they got other players that want that money as well, and they're all worth it. They have the possibility to three-peat this year. And I mean, this season so far, it seems like Steph Curry has been their best player. Because Kevin Durant was the guy on OKC, and then he's basically second fiddle in Golden State because Steph has already solidified that lead dog status, that alpha status. He's not letting go. The same thing happened with Chris Bosh in Miami, Paul George in OKC his first season. These players were on their previous teams. They were the main focal point, and now they have to take a sidekick role. At least for the time being, in some instances. But it gets to you. Carmelo Anthony was coming off the bench this season, and now he's not on a team. Well, Carmelo Anthony, he used to be this scoring machine. Everybody wanted Carmelo. The Bulls wanted Carmelo. I wanted Carmelo. And now nobody even wants to see Carmelo. Nobody wants to pay Carmelo. Nobody wants to put Carmelo in their starting lineup. That's the main thing. The Rockets got rid of him apparently because he wasn't a fit. Carmelo is an oblong puzzle piece. He's not really going to fit anywhere. He just does what he does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's one of the greatest scorers in NBA history, and definitely in the last decade and 15 years. No question. He could drop 30 any night in his prime. But for him to be good, he always had to have the ball in his hand. So when they got Amari Stoudemire on the Knicks, they put up their numbers, but they had to figure it out. They had to figure out how to work together. And then they got Tyson Chandler, who at the time was coming off the championship with the Mavericks, and he appeared to be finally hitting his stride and peak, since he got drafted with the baby Bulls, in the early 2000s. So he was commanding a little bit of attention, and then in the spring, everybody went down and got hurt, and Linsanity happened, and then they had to figure that out. So they got three to four pieces at a time that that need to be game planned around, and it's just you feel neglected, and some people want to go as far as changing teams and changing locations, and a lot of times they go to a new place and they're the main guy again, and they're happy, and they're playing better. But at this point in Melo's career, I don't think he's that guy anymore. He still wants to be a starter, but coming off the bench, he was playing 30 minutes a game and sucking ass, to put it politely. And Melo's legacy at this point, it's just kind of like one of the greatest scorers of all time. He was dominant, one of the most exciting players to watch, whether it was on the Nuggets or the Knicks. Not so much OKC or Houston, but what are you going to do? Derrick Rose's New York and Cleveland days were less than memorable from a hometown perspective. But yeah, he's always been a scorer and a scoring first player. He's not necessarily, the ideal definition of a team player. Doesn't play a hell of a lot of defense. If I can recall But, yeah, I think he's just, and I think he's always just kind of been a ball hog, and that's kind of, what's brought the team, what's brought his teams, not really down, but they've pulled back from that possible, mountaintop, of greatness that they could have achieved. Because, Melo's playing with Amari Stoudemire and Allen Iverson, and, they could never get anything done. I don't know. There's a reason for everything, I guess. But at this point, Melo just wants to be on a team, I assume. Hopefully that's what he's thinking, because if he's still thinking that he's a starter after what's gone down. But yeah, so Carmelo Anthony is without a team, and Jimmy Butler finally got his new team. Wolves traded him to the Sixers, and in my opinion, I think they may have got fleeced. But, all things considered, Jimmy Butler is going to be a free agent next year as well. And, you think you might be getting just a rental, but, the 76ers are, one of the up-and-coming teams in the East. And with the addition of Jimmy Butler, they might just be the favorites. The Celtics are obviously up there. The Raptors are the best team right now. The 76ers can easily take that over once Jimmy Butler gets acclimated. So I think on paper they definitely deserve to have that conversation that they're the favorite in the East for sure. Could they beat Golden State? Maybe. Jimmy Butler, you can put him on Kevin Durant and try to slow him down, I guess. Ben Simmons too. Put him on Draymond Green. It'd be a fun 7 games. But anyway, the Wolves got Robert Covington, who is he's a small forward. He's a decent player. He seemed to be coming into his own this past this season and the past season, the 2018 season. And Dario Saric as well, who's a European player who's got a lot of potential. They also traded Jared Bayless, who's just he's a veteran guard who can contribute, but nothing flashy. And the 76ers got back Justin Patton, who was the Timberwolves draft pick from last year that the Bulls gave to him in the LaVine, Markkanen, and Dunn trade. Markkanen was the 7th pick, but turned into Markkanen for all intents and purposes, whatever. So, the Timberwolves are in an interesting spot right now, but I'll get back to them in a second. So, the 76ers definitely are in the conversation to take over that top spot in the East. I think among those 3 or 4 teams, the East is kind of wide open between Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, and Philly. Miami's not really there yet. Chicago's definitely not there yet. Charlotte, Detroit, New York, Brooklyn. Yeah, none of these teams are really a threat to any of those 4. So it's basically a top 4 race, kind of like the West, really. So it only took LeBron leaving the conference for it to become exciting and competitive again. Who would have thought, except everybody? But that's whatever. But anyway, at least the Wolves seem to have an idea of where they want to go, which is a more team-based approach, because what Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins on the Timberwolves have said, if you take their word for it, Jimmy was too much for them to handle, to say the least. And from one perspective, you can say that Jimmy's just that's just his personality, and he's brash, and you just got to learn to live with it. And from one perspective, it's Jimmy's being an asshole, and he deserved to get traded. I think Jimmy is just very passionate about the game. he's worked so hard to get to this point, and being a Bulls fan, we've been exposed to Jimmy's origin story. He was basically an orphan. I'm pretty sure he was, not basically, he was an orphan, and living in Tomball, Texas. And at like 13, a family took him in and they raised him, and he went off to Marquette to play basketball, and the Bulls drafted him with the last pick in the first round. Didn't play a whole lot to begin with, but he eventually cracked the rotation, and Tom Thibodeau, the coach at the time for the Bulls and the current Timberwolves coach, took a liking to him, and then he ended up starting and getting a big contract, and the rest is history. And the fact that the little humble Texas kid who came all this way, once he got the attention, the notoriety, and the fame, he basically just did his own thing, went Hollywood, and said, fuck it, I've been poor and working hard my whole life. I got everything that I want right now. I'll just fucking flex and get more. Amen, Jimmy. That's why I got your Christmas jersey a couple years ago. Because he's a fucking animal. Oh, Jimmy. But yeah, Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they have their shot now. They have their opportunity to put up or shut up and show the league that they're actually, ready to go balls to the wall and bear down. This is your team now, and it's Jimmy's gone. The bad man is gone. You can come out and play your brand of basketball now. And thank God for Derrick Rose, coming out of the grave, reaching the fountain of youth, and dropping 50 on these motherfuckers. So they got Derrick Rose. If they want, I think they should start him. But if they want to bring him off the bench, that would probably be more beneficial in the long run. But they have a rejuvenated Derrick Rose at their disposal to also use, and a new offensive power forward and a solid small forward presence. Probably slide Wiggins over to the 2. They got a solid team. It's not great, but they can definitely move forward. It's not the sexiest destination, but it's definitely doable. Minnesota's owner, Glenn Taylor, I think he was kind of upset about the whole Jimmy situation, because he was saying that he thought they basically the Timberwolves, that they basically helped Jimmy out of Chicago because he wanted to be the guy, and they helped out Chicago by giving them good players. They thought that was a good move to entice them, and it did. It did. Garpax basically erased all of the shitty moves that they've made the past 10 years with that one trade, because now Jimmy isn't on the Timberwolves, and they had to give up 2 players. They had to give up Saric and Covington to get rid of him as well. Wait, that's not right. Those guys are on the Timberwolves now. They were on the Sixers. But either way, that trade was an L for Minnesota for sure, because we got Zach LaVine, on that fucking rejuvenated Terminator knee. Lauri Markkanen's looking like a beast in his rehab. Hopefully he comes back and does what he did last season and then some. Hopefully Chris Duncan can do his thing, and hopefully be that 3-and-D guard. Denzel Valentine too. Although nobody really knows what the fuck's going on with him, because he was supposed to come back this week pretty much, but something went wrong in the rehab apparently. Oof. It's been a long week, everybody, but we'll wrap it up by talking about one more aspect of the Bulls. Zach LaVine, like I said, he's on a freaking tear, and I think he's must-see TV for sure. I mean, every game he's got some kind of high-flying dunk. You know, the last game, I think it was the last game, he had a tomahawk, behind the back. He had a 360, he had a clutch, he had all this shit going on. He's scoring 30, he's scoring 20. Pretty sure he was the what record did he break? I don't think he definitely broke a record, but he scored 20 or more points in 14 straight games. And they were the first 14 straight games to start the season, for that matter. But he passed Michael Jordan, who had 13, and Zach LaVine had 14 until last night. He scored 10. Either last night or the night before. That last game, he scored 10 against the Celtics, and 10 or 16. It was definitely not 20, but he passed Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan has the next 3. He has the next 3 spots, so it's not like no, he has the next 2, but still, it's not. Zach LaVine can't get away from the Michael Jordan comparisons, and these dunks are, they're high flying. They look like MJ. And he's playing shooting guard for the Chicago Bulls. So, do with that information what you want. He's must-see TV, and the Bulls could be scary when he gets back. When everybody else gets back, Markin and Portis, Dunn and Valentine. But from a fan perspective, maybe they have to tank in order to have a shot at Zion Williamson, which, as much as I don't want the Bulls to lose anymore, Zion Williamson he's a very nice player, and I would love for him to play somewhere on the Chicago Bulls. But that's gonna wrap it up. I got to get out of here. This has been the Basketbool Podcast. I am Brandon Orlowski, your host. You can check me out on social media at Brandon Orlowski. That's pretty much my name for everything. That handle isn't very sought after, but you can find me there. You can find the podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and anywhere else that I decide to put it up. But you guys will be the first to know if you follow on social media. Twitter is at Basketboolin. Instagram is at Basketbool Podcast. And those are pretty much the only ones that I signed up for, because those are pretty much the only ones that are important at this point in the show's career. But that's it. Basketbool Podcast. Hopefully this is a weekly thing. Brandon Orlowski. Peace.
Take that for data.